कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीरितं कल्मषापहम् श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna with the devotees at Dakshineshwar. Sri Ramakrishna's conversation continues. A man who has realized God shows certain characteristics. He becomes like a child or a madman or an inert thing or a ghoul. So we find that his behavior is not adhering to this common people, the general people, the common masses. It's not adhering. So what's the reason behind it? That we will find that for a realized soul, with the annihilation of the ego. So even in modern psychology, they say that between the right and the left hemisphere of our brain, these are interconnected. But sometimes our emotions, our biases creates a split between these two hemispheres. And then what happens? We will find that our behavior, what we say, is not conforming to what we intend. In the words of Sri Ramakrishna, that entire spiritual practice is to make your the speech conform to your mind. Mon, mukh, akkar. So this is not a very easy thing. We think that we are always very, very sincere. Whatever we say, we mean it. But just think throughout the world, there's so much of fanaticism. And sometimes we feel those who are fanatic, they are on the wrong path. They're just asserting something from their wrong belief. But if you meet those persons, you will find a wonderful thing. They're speaking as if from their conviction. They're speaking as if from the idea that I am very sincere what I'm saying. I mean it. But others are feeling that that he is fanatic. Even in our day-to-day life, everywhere we will find, suppose some football, the soccer match is going on, and there is some confrontation develops during the play, and we find that spreads to the stadium, and there is some clash between the various supporters. And now if you go and just take an interview, you will find a wonderful thing. Both the supporters of both the team are saying that we are right, the others are wrong. In politics, everywhere the same thing. You go to these two parties, both the opposition says we are right, the ruling says we are right. All the political parties, they are saying they are right. Are they conscious liars? No. Their bias has created a split in their brain. And what happens then once the split is created? The right brain is autobiographical. It registers what's going on. And then it transmits to the left brain, which is the language brain. But when there is a split, the right brain cannot send its impressions to the left brain. But the left brain is the language brain. So what happens when the right brain cannot send its impressions to the left? The left has to speak out, has to convince the world, not only the world, even himself, that what I am saying is right. So that's why even in modern psychology they say the left brain is the propaganda machine. It's a propaganda machine. Constantly propagating. Not only it is trying to convince others. We are very sincere. Even we try to convince ourselves, not try. The left brain convinces us. It makes us think that what I am doing is correct. I do mean it. That simple experiment which we spoke of in some other context. That one who had a surgical split. Previously it was thought that those who have this split between the right and the left, they act normally. But there is a famous experiment called split brain experiment in which it has been found that it's not so. That this person sometimes do behave incoherently. How? That when experiment was conducted, a person who has such a split was made to sit in such a way that he cannot turn his head. Now, very interesting, there is a crisscross in our brain. That what we see with our left eye is registered by the right brain. Whatever we see with our right eye is registered with the left brain. So there is a crisscross. So everything, whatever we are doing with our left hand is registered by registered by the right brain. Whatever we are doing with the right hand is registered with the left brain. So there is a crisscross. Now for such a person who has a split, what was done, the experiment, very simple experiment. On the left side, there was a display in a board. Now, he was made to sit in such a way that he cannot turn his head. So now, naturally, even when he's turning his eyes, he cannot turn his head. There are certain positions where he can see only with his left eye. As he cannot turn his head, only with his left eye he can see. With the right eye, he cannot see. At such a position, the display board was kept. And he was asked to sit in that chair. And then the display was, please get up from your chair and move forward. So this person immediately got up and started moving. The one who was conducting the experiment immediately told, stop. Why you got up? Why are you moving? And then the man said, immediately what he said, oh, in the front there was a refrigerator, there was a fridge. And it was a bit hot, summer season. He said, I am feeling thirsty. I want to drink water. There is some cold water there. I want to drink water. Now the one who was conducting the experiment, he was perplexed. Because he was sure. He saw the instruction that get up and move forward. Seeing that, he got up and is moving forward. But when I ask him, he's saying, there is some water in the fridge. That's what I want to drink. It's very interesting. What has happened? The right brain has registered, because there is a crisscross. What he have seen in the left side was registered on the right brain. So it was registered. Accordingly, he has started acting. But that instruction was not conveyed to the left brain, because there is a split. But at the same time, no one wants to, because of our ego. Because of our ego, the stronger the ego, what we always want to prove, we are right. We are beneficial for the society. We are effective for the society. That's why in psychology they have coined a term called benefactance. Beneficial and effectiveness. Benefactance. So this, we always want to prove that I am beneficial and effective. I am not a person who is queer, who is mad, who behaves in an abnormal way. So this ego creates the split in us. If there is in some way the right brain instruction is not going to the left brain because of our fanaticism, because of our strong beliefs, because of our strong ego, the split is created. Here the split is created surgically. As it was not conveyed, immediately that person doesn't want to just prove to the world that he is behaving something in a very queer fashion. He doesn't know what he is doing. So immediately the left brain creates a language. And when it creates the language, very interesting, it makes the person believe. That person sincerely saying that I am really thirsty, I am going to drink the water. It's not that he's making a story. He himself doesn't know how the brain is fooling him and is trying to fool others. And now we will try to understand this sentence, that how we are trying to show ourselves always, constantly. That Swami says that so much effort goes to show others that I am good. If we really wanted to be good, we would have changed. Unknowingly, it's not that consciously we are trying to show others. We are constituted in such a way. Our ego is built up in such a way that we really, even unintentionally trying to show others, or throughout the life, that's the effort. That I want to show others that I am beneficial and effective. So as long as the ego is there, that split is there, and unknowingly we are behaving in a particular way, which is the behavior of the majority, and that's the normal behavior. But a person who has realized God, the split has gone, for him, if such an experiment is done, he will say, I don't know why I got up. And he will say, he's a mad person. He is a mad person. He is doing something for which there is no reason. As if, why the child behaves in the way he behaves, the child? Because the ego is very less. He doesn't in any way feel ashamed that whatever I am feeling, I am doing what others will think. It never thinks. He's just free. That ego is not there. So whatever is being registered in our mind, he is doing. We are all mad, if we speak out our thoughts. It is so incoherent. If we do loud thinking, we are all mad. It is again that benefactance which restricts us from speaking what we are thinking throughout the day. Just think what madness is going on in our mind. A madman has lost that capacity. He simply speaks out his mind. We just don't do that. So here you will find a man of realization that for a mad person, for a ghaul, so somehow because for a child, either because of some mental aberration or something, that split is not there, and he is just behaving as per the dictates of mind without caring of what others will say. And that's why we say he's a mad, he's a ghaul, he's an inert person. And what we are doing, that as the ego is strong, constantly we are trying to always show others that I am good, I am beneficial, I am effective. And that's the majority. That speaks of this so-called coherent behavior. Actually, it is the behavior of the majority. For a man of realization, when the ego falls off, he becomes just like a child. Who is a mad person? If a grown-up child behaves like if a grown-up person behaves like a child, we will say he's a mad. Actually, what has happened? That the ego has vanished. That the split is not working. And he is just whatever the mind is dictating, he is doing without caring for the approbation of the society. That what the society is going to say him. He has no such feeling. And that's why he behaves, sometimes he becomes like a child or a madman or an inert thing or a cow. So this is the idea which we can find out with the help even of our modern psychology, that why it happens. Because this split has gone. In another way, this is a very important thing, that he becomes like an inert thing. Why this inertness comes? Because tremendous detachment. Again, in our brain, if you study the neurology, is a wonderful thing. What happens? That all our perceptions are actually synthesized, is a synthesis of various piecemeal perceptions. When I am seeing my house, it's not that just I am perceiving through my eyes my house. What I am perceiving, with that my feeling also gets linked up. This is my house. And immediately that feeling comes. So this is my house. So what is happening? For each and every perception, our feelings are getting associated with all our things which we are seeing. Even in modern psychology, they say there is a syndrome called cab crash syndrome. That suddenly one day morning, a child gets up and looks at his mother and say, you look like my mother, but you are not my mother. You are impersonating as my mother. You are an imposter. The mother gets scared. What happened to my child? Takes to the doctor. The doctor says he has developed this cab crash syndrome. It is type of psychopathic condition. What has happened? That all our perceptions have a synthesis. Our perceptions get synthesized with the feelings to create the sensation, my. For a man of realization, just here for an inert person, because of some psychological aberration, that separation has happened. That separation of the feelings from the perception has happened. But for a man of realization, through his detachment, through his spiritual practices, contemplation, he has went to that para vairagya. Through this practice, he has went to this detachment. His feelings are no more associated with his perception. So, as Swamiji used to say, this opposite pole looks alike. So he consciously has went to a state where he consciously separates his feelings from all his perceptions. All his vrittis becomes aklishta. This yoga, these terms are very interesting. There are two types of vrittis. Whenever there is a thought wave in our mind, it can be either klishta or aklishta. Aklishta is the jnana vritti. When I am seeing the table, this table has nothing to do with my sense of belonging. Just a table. But when I look at my own mobile phone, this is mine. So what has happened? With all the vrittis, the kleshas, this asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, liking, disliking, or fear, all these feelings have got associated. So vritti by itself is not harmful. When all these kleshas, this raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, liking, disliking, all these things get associated, then it causes suffering. For a man of spiritual attainment, he has consciously separated that. So now it's a pole apart. For a man, because of psychological aberration, that separation has happened, he appears to be very inert, as if having no feelings. But a man of realization also appears to be that. But he, through his sadhana, has went to that state where consciously he has separated. And that's why he may look like an inert person. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. A man who has realized God. This is the idea even in Vivek Churaman, when we were studying. A particular sloka is there, where almost in the end of Vivek Churaman, when we were studying, where the same idea, that a man of realization, he looks, sometimes appears as a child, sometimes like a madman, and or an inert thing or a ghav. So this is the thing which is because of the falling off of the ego, falling off of all the attachment. This behavioral pattern changes. He becomes something which the others cannot relate to. The actually others are abnormal, but they being the majority, they declare themselves to be the normal. So whoever is the majority, it is just a matter of vote. All our sensations, that whatever we think as real, is actually consensus reality. You say this flower is red, I say this flower is red, all say this flower is red, so the flower is red. If someone because of color blindness says, no, I don't see the redness there, we say you are defective. Actually, we are also projecting the redness, all are projecting the redness. As we do it in the same fashion, that is a consensus. We give a consent, yes, it is red. The other's brain is made up in a bit different way, and he says it's not red, we say it's defective. That's why even in modern psychology, they never use the term that he has some disease. They say he is a bit different, because they understand. It is both are projecting, but he is projecting something which majority is not projecting. So that's why as he becomes minority, that's why we say he is mad. When Sri Ramakrishna, during his sadhana, when others used to say him mad, he used to give a nice reply, that all are mad. Some are mad for money, some are mad for for wife, for wealth, for relations, for name, fame, position. I am mad for God. It's a minority. Very few are mad for God. So this majority, they will ascribe me as mad, but all are mad. So this is the idea, wonderful idea, which we find has been very nicely said in the scriptures. He may appear as so. These opposite poles look alike. A man of realization can look like those who, like his child, but they have attained that state consciously through their spiritual practices by getting rid of all the splits, by getting rid of all their attachments. And that's why being a minority, they appeared to be like a child or a madman or an inert thing or a ghoul. Further, he is firmly convinced that he is the machine and God is its operator, that God alone is the doer and all others are his instruments. As some Sikh devotees once said to me, even the leaf moves because of God's will. One should be aware that everything happens by the will of Rama. The weaver said, the price of the cloth by the will of Rama is 1 rupee 6 annas. By the will of Rama, the robbery was committed. By the will of Rama, the robbers were arrested. By the will of Rama, I too was arrested by the police. And at last, by the will of Rama, I was released. So it's a story Sri Ramakrishna has actually narrated in some other context in the gospel, that there was a weaver who was a devotee of Rama. He was an ardent devotee of Rama. Always, whatever you ask him, he will always say, by the will of Rama. That whatever he will say, that I eat by the will of Rama, I sleep by the will of Rama, whatever I do, whatever happens, everything happens by the will of Rama. So now one day, it so happened that he was taking rest. It was a summer, it was a night after his supper. He was not getting sleep. So what he did, in his courtyard, he was just simply relaxing and taking the name of the Lord. And that's the time some these robbers were passing by the road, and they have already robbed some house, and they were carrying this lot of things, and the weight of the baggage was quite heavy. So they were in need of some person who can help them to carry all the things they have robbed. It was a huge load. So now seeing this person, this innocent person sitting there, they just got hold of him, forced him, just come with us and just carry this load along with us and just help us to move. And now that's how, along with the robbers, he was moving. He was forced, and he was just a normal person. All these robbers were very strong. So he was almost forced, he was dragged. So what to do? He was just helping them in carrying those load. And in the meantime, the police came. The police chased them. The robbers ran. But this innocent weaver, he couldn't run. And he was caught along with all this baggage of the things which was all stolen. So naturally, the police thought that he is the one who has stolen. He was taken to the police station, to the jail. He was interrogated, and he just went on saying when the police asked. That day they kept him in the jail, and next day he was taken to the court. And the entire villager got the news that this weaver, he's a simple man, he's a devotee. It's impossible that he can steal. What has happened, how he was caught. So the entire village was there in the court just to hear what has happened. And now when the judge asked him, just say what has happened, then he started saying this way, that by the will of Rama, I was taking rest. It was a summer night. Because of the heat, I was not getting sleep. I was taking rest in the courtyard. And by the will of Rama, these robbers were passing by. And then by the will of Rama, they needed the help, and they caught hold of me and asked me to, and forced me to just carry all the things they have robbed. And by the will of Rama, the police came. By the will of Rama, they all ran away. By the will of Rama, I was caught with the things. And by the will of Rama, I was in the jail. And by the will of Rama, I am here. And then the villagers were also there. The judge, by hearing the narration, understood what has happened. And he declared that he is an innocent person. The police has caught the wrong person. So let him be released. So he was released. And when he was going back along with his villagers, he said, by the will of Rama, I have been released. So everything is happening by the will of Rama. That was his conviction. Even when he is to sell the cloth, if anyone has to ask him the price, he will say the exact price. By the will of Rama, this is the thing, this is the cost of the thread, this is my labor cost, and this is the little profit which I have kept, and that by the will of Rama, this price is such and such. So people were convinced of this honesty. And this is the story which Sri Ramakrishna has related here. In short, he is saying that everything happens, as this devotee has said, by the will of Rama. One should be aware that everything happens by the will of Rama. The weaver said the price of the cloth by the will of Rama is 1 rupee 6 annas. By the will of Rama, the robbery was committed. By the will of Rama, the robbers were arrested. At last, when he was convinced that it is not he, that the police were in search of the robbers and they were arrested. By the will of Rama, I too was arrested by the police, and at last, by the will of Rama, I was released. So everything happened by the will of Rama. So what's the idea here? That it is the ego which makes us feel that I am the doer, that it's a continuation of the previous idea. That's the ego. That ego makes us believe that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the karta, I am the bhokta. But actually, nothing is happening by our own will. Again, these are the ideas. Sometimes we will say it's a matter of faith. It has nothing to do with our so-called rational understanding. But even in modern science, the psychology says the same thing, that we are not the doer. That in the process of evolution, we have developed so many mental modules. These mental modules in our language can be spoken of as samskaras. As per the samskaras, we act. Now, very interesting thing, that there are so many samskaras, that there is, if I see some delicacy, I immediately start salivating, and I have a tendency to eat. So, like that, this is also a samskara. There's my liking for this delicacy. It's a samskara. There are thousands of samskara. Now, the question is that we act as per our samskara, but we feel that it is we will. I want to eat this delicacy, and it is because of the will I have decided, then I am eating. But actually, what even modern psychology is saying, that actually of all the samskara in the mind, at one moment, only one module, only one samskara that manifests. The others remain dormant. Now the question is, which will manifest? Is there someone to command that yes, you are the one, you manifest and act accordingly? No. There is no commander. Then how come one of those samskaras rise up to our mind if there is no one to dictate? So even in modern psychology they say, as per the environment in which we are, a favorable module gets activated. It's the external circumstances, like the delicacy which I like. Suppose I had released a pizza and I forgot about it. Now I am passing by a pizza shop. So this is the circumstance, the environment, which makes this samskara to rise up in my mind. I am feeling, oh, now it is because of me, I have decided I will go and just buy the pizza and eat. No. The mental module has been activated by the circumstances. Now I am bound to go and buy and have it. So even in modern psychology, they say that not a single decision we are taking by our own will. It's as per the circumstances, among the innumerable modules, among the innumerable samskaras, a particular samskara is rising, and it has its fixed stimuli response conditioning. A particular stimuli will have a particular response, and we are bound to respond in that particular way. But somehow the mind, again as we say, that will fool us by making us feel that I have decided. When the ego falls off, a man of realization knows very well that it is the mind, that even in Bhagavad Gita they say, Guna Guneshu Vartanta. That he knows he is not the doer. The external gunas are activating the internal gunas. Guna Guneshu Vartanta. He is convinced about that. And that's how the psychophysical existence is interacting with the world. The one who is the consciousness is just the witness. He is in no way thus ascribing or just dictating that this should be done. Because of its presence, all these mental modules gets activated. That much, his presence is needed. But it is not the one, the consciousness, our Atman, who is taking the decision. The decision is taken by the external circumstances and accordingly the samskara which has been activated. So we are not the doer. And that's the thing which we find that a man of realization knows it. When he has gone beyond the ego, he can really see the working of the mind. He knows guna guneshu vartanta. It's all just the working of the mind based on the external circumstances. There, I am not the doer. Everything is happening by this power much greater than life. It is not me. This entire nature, everything has been projected by some further, by some existence which is much beyond my comprehension. How that's all happening. It's not me. And that's the thing. A man of realization realizes, he is firmly convinced that he is the machine and God is its operator, that God alone is the doer and all other are his instruments. As some Sikh devotees once said to me, even a leaf moves because of God's will. One should be aware that everything happens by the will of Rama. The weaver said, the price of cloth, etc., as we were just discussing. So, Sri Ramakrishna in some other context gives another very nice, simple example. That when in a pot, in boiling water, the vegetables are also boiling. A small child looks at it and finds the vegetables are all jumping. And the child may think, he will be convinced, that all these vegetables are having life. Because anything which moves must have life. These vegetables are moving by their own, they must have life. And the mother comes and removes the pot from the furnace. And all the jumping stops. So it was the fire that made all the things jump. So that's the thing. There is some fire, there is some consciousness behind us which is making everything appear as the doer, but actually without it nothing moves in this world. That Sri Ramakrishna is another example, that if you add 0 after 1, its values goes on increasing. 1, 0, 10, there's another 0, 100, like that the value will go on increasing. You remove the 1, everything is 0. So without his will, without him, nothing. Everything is just inert matter, nothing else. So that's what he's saying. So it was dusk. Sri Ramakrishna had no rest since his midday meal. He had talked unceasingly to the devotees about God. At last the visitors took their leave and went home. Friday, June 15, 1883. It was a holiday on account of the Hindu religious festival Dasahara. Among the devotees who visited Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar that day were Adhar, M. and Rakhal's father. Rakhal's father's father-in-law was also present. All were seated on the floor of the master's room. Advice to the householders. Rakhal's father's father-in-law was a devotee of God. He asked the master, "Sir, can one realize God while leading the life of a householder?" Master, with a smile, "Why not? Live in the world like a mudfish. The mudfish lives in the mud, but itself remains unstained. Or live in the world like a loose woman. She attends to her household duties, but her mind is always on her sweetheart. Do your duties in the world, fixing your mind on God." But this is extremely difficult. So that's Sri Ramakrishna is saying that our external real renunciation is in the mind. External renunciation just helps to develop that renunciation in the mind. But if someone can develop that mental renunciation, whether he be at house, whether he be a householder, whether he be a monk, irrespective of that fact, if he can develop that renunciation, mental renunciation, that speaks of his spiritual attainment. So that example which we give sometimes, that renunciation is something which has to do with the mind. That what we are doing, that doesn't speak of renunciation. Sometimes we may be just acting like any other being. People may feel we are fully attached to their life, but inwardly, most probably we are totally detached. That's the example of that small child going to the child care center. We give that example. When he is going for the first time, he finds that new environment. For the first time, he is out of his security zone, out of his comfort zone. He finds this environment something alien. He's alien to that. He's scared of it. And he starts crying. He doesn't want to leave his father. And then, after a few days, when he has started going to the child care, after a few days he has developed friendship, with others. And now just the opposite thing happens. He's so engaged in his game throughout the day's play and game. And in the evening when the parent comes to take him, he is not willing. He starts crying again. So we find it in the beginning, he was crying when the parent went to drop the child to the child care, and then after a few days or few weeks, just the opposite happens, and then the crying stops. In the morning you drop, the child is not crying, you are bringing him back, he is not crying. What has happened? The mental renunciation has happened. What has happened? Now the child in this process have understood. What he has understood? That this child care center is a temporary place. Every day morning my father will drop here, evening he will take me back. My house is my own. That is my place. That is the permanent place of mine. Every day I will come here, spend some hours, but it is not the place which belongs to me. It's just a temporary place. Once this understanding comes, does the child just sit throughout the day in a corner of the child care center, just waiting when my father comes back in the evening? Till then, as it is a temporary place, I need not play with others. He just sits in a corner and just waits. No. He's involved. He's involved, playing, having fun, making merry, but there is no crying. Because of that understanding that this is not the permanent place, this is a temporary place. This has registered in his mind. So he's fully involved, but that inner detachment has developed. So that's the thing which should happen with us in this life. We also have to understand this life is a kindergarten. It's just like a child care center. We are just going to spend here only a few hours, nothing else. But our permanent place is with God. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. If once that understanding comes, what I am doing is immaterial, then the question of suffering is no more there. There is no question of crying. So that's why there is a very nice this couplet of Kabir, that when I was born, I was crying, all were smiling. That live the life in such a way that when it's a time for departing, when I die, it is I who will laugh, who will smile, and others will cry. So that detachment has developed. I know this is a place of, there is no more crying when I am departing, because I know I am now going to the place which belongs to me. And that's the idea. So if we can develop that, so even when we are staying at home, still we can be what is it called? This Gupta Sannyasi. He's actually a renunciate, but he has hidden himself very well. He looks like a householder, but he's not a householder. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that live in the world like a mudfish. The mudfish lives in the mud, but itself remains unstained. Or live in the world like a loose woman. She attends to her household duties. She is doing all the thing, but her mind is always on her sweetheart. So that's the thing. So that renunciation is within. So we need not have to renounce the activities. It can go on, but the mind should be always associated with the divine, the one that belongs to me through eternity. He is my eternal companion. So do your duties in the world, fixing your mind on God. But it is not easy. It is very difficult. That why renunciation, we speak that a life of a renunciate is a better life, because you get the favorable circumstances, nothing else. After all, the goal is to develop dispassion of the mind. But if I am always in association with the things with which I am obsessed, it is very difficult to develop that dispassion. So that's why moving out can help. That's what Sri Ramakrishna also will be indicating in his succeeding discussion. That's why he's saying that it is possible, but it is difficult. It is not that easy. I said to the members of the Brahmo Samaj, suppose, so now that he's saying that why it is not easy, suppose a typhoid patient is kept in a room where there are jars of pickles and pitchers of water. How can you expect the patient to recover? So the typhoid patient feels extremely thirsty. But at the same time, drinking too much of water can be fatal. So, though he feels thirsty, he has to be kept, he shouldn't be allowed to drink too much of water. So, if you keep water near him, then what will happen? That he will be just obsessed to take that water, which in a way is not going to help him, it will harm him. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. Suppose a typhus patient is kept in a room where there are jars of pickles and pitchers of water. How can you expect the patient to recover? The very thought of spiked pickles brings water to one's mouth. The craving for worldly things, which is chronic in man, is like the patient's craving for water. There is no end to this craving. The typhoid patient says, I shall drink a whole pitcher of water. The situation is very difficult. There is so much confusion in the world. So that's the idea. That when our samskaras are too strong, if we are in association with the objects of the senses, if we are exposed to an environment where all those samskaras gets an upper hand to immediately rise in our mind, then the chance of renouncing them is almost impossible. We will find that what happens, sometimes we need not have to even take decision. There's something called reflex. Whenever favorable circumstances is there, even without taking conscious decision, we are drawn towards it. We have got obsessed by them. These samskaras in favorable circumstances, they rise up as memories, and once the memory is there, even conscious decision need not be taken. Our body system is such, as per the reflex, it immediately acts. So in this situation, unless for time being, I keep myself apart from that environment, because in that environment, the samskara is bound to rise up in the mind, and once it rises, my body-mind system has developed a reflex, it will react almost automatically. So how will I develop dispassion, this detachment for that? This is the only way. I have to keep myself bit apart from that environment for some time till this samskara gets weakened. And it gets weakened if we keep ourselves apart from that environment. It's just like I was feeding the birds every day morning with some grains. And then I decide one day I am not going to feed them anymore. Will they stop coming? No, they will continue coming. But I have to be patient, and I shouldn't just again, seeing that after 2 days, 3 days, when I find they are coming back, and I yield to their insistence and I again feed them. Then again they will develop that expectation. They have got that grains. They will again develop that expectation. So what I have to do, I have to wait patiently 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week, and then these birds get the feedback that now he's not going to yield to our insistence, and then they will fall back. They won't come back anymore. So that's the thing. So unless we are separating ourselves and having that patience, perseverance to be away from it, is very difficult. So that's why he's saying that while staying in a household, ideally it is possible, but practically it is almost impossible as long as you're in association with the things, because you have already developed a strong reflex. Your association with the things have created something mental wiring. That's what Swamiji used to say, it's a nervous association. The nerves has got associated. So it's very difficult. So that's why it's more favorable to physically get detached from that situation. And that's what speaks of the physical sannyasa. That yes, sannyasa, that way it helps to a great extent. And then what he's saying, if you go this way, now after that he's saying there is so much confusion in the world that we are forced by our obsessions to act in a particular way, and it doesn't end there. It entails in suffering. That our obsessions makes us behave in particular way, and then that leads to inevitable suffering. But we have no other way. In the words of Ramakrishna, the camel feeds on thorny bushes, it bleeds, still it continues to eat on thorny bushes because it has got obsessed by it. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. If you go this way, you are threatened with a shovel. If you go that way, you are threatened with a broomstick. Again, in another direction, you are threatened with a shoe beating. What he is saying? That because of our association with the sensate objects, we develop obsession. Then what happens? Our obsession makes us forget about the collective goodness, collective welfare. That why we get the reaction from the society, that he is saying that you will be threatened by broomstick, you will be threatened by a shovel, by shoe beating. What he speaks, the others will be threatening you. Why? Because you will be trampling over the common interest. Your obsessions has become so strong. As we say that in this life, what is papa and punya? Punya is nothing, this morality is nothing but subsiding, keeping our individual interest always should be shadowed by the collective interest. It's just like passing through the streets, following the traffic rules. When I see the red light, I have to stop. My intention is to go to my destiny as early as possible. But everyone wants that. But if I'm obsessed, I won't be following the traffic rules. Then what will happen? I will get the fine because I have overruled the collective welfare, the collective interest. I have overruled. I have broken that. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that when we are too much with our sensate world, it makes us obsessed and we think, what's the harm in it? It gives us pleasure. Let us enjoy the pleasure. But all the obsessions at last makes us suffer from this OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It's not a few patients who go to the doctor and the doctor have said he has OCD. We all have this OCD that way. Our obsessions makes us forget about the collective goodness and we just override them, and then the repercussion comes. What? That's this. You are threatened with a shovel, you will be threatened with a broomstick, and you will be threatened with a shoe beating. So that's the thing. So it's not that by our obsessions we enjoy. That's what in dream we think. We may be having all those fantasies that our obsessions can lead us to unending happiness. The entire your social media also will advertise that way. But we see so much suffering in the life, and you will find it is your obsessions. It is our obsessions that has resulted in all the suffering. We never advertise that suffering. We advertise that we had infinite pleasure. But obsessions leading to infinite pleasure, not a single instance you can show that it has happened. Never. It at last leads to suffering. It at last, you will find in your own house, which you think to be the most comfortable zone, most secured zone, that's where all the family violence happens, all the family abuse happens, everything happens there. The place which you think the most secured place, so many abuses are happening, violences are happening. Why? Your obsessions have overridden the collective goodness. And then reaction comes. At last we find ourselves to be threatened by the society. Either we are being that the society decides I am not in a state of mind to be in the society, so they segregate and keep you in the jail. all this suffering. That's the what speaking of is the broomstick as the shoe beating. So that's what obsession leads us. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That don't think that what's the harm in it. Why I need God? Quiet, it's good that I can just follow the dictates of my senses and I lead this sensual life. But at last you will find this entire society is running after you with the shoes and with the broomsticks, and that's what Sri Ramakrishna in a very crude language, that's what he is indicating. Besides, one cannot think of God unless one lives in solitude. So that's why. So he's saying that in family it's possible, but now he's showing that how it actually is almost impossible. Ideally it's possible, because after all renunciation is in the mind, but it's almost impossible as long as you are with the association with the sensate objects for which you have still inclination. It will lead to obsession, it will lead to this compulsive behavior, which in turn is going to lead in some all sorts of complications. The only way, that's why he says, is to live in solitude. The goldsmith melts gold to make ornaments, but how can he do this work well if he is disturbed again and again? Suppose you are separating rice from bits of husk, you must do it all by yourself. Every now and then you have to take the rice in your hand to see how clean it is. So that's it is speaking, this rice is nothing but your mind. Taking in your hand means you're alone, observing your mind and seeing how it works. Our mind is our enemy, our mind is our friend. And when you control it, it is your best friend. And when it is controlling you, it is the greatest enemy. So if there's a nice saying that if the mind is your master, it is the most tyrannical master. And if you can make it your servant, it is the most obedient servant. So first to find out what's the state of mind, whether it's your master or it's a servant, you have to be in solitude and just see the working of the mind. If we are not in solitude, we will be always blaming the society. Well, what's the wrong with me? That's what God has made me. I am following the dictates of my senses. The entire society is there just to dictate me what is right and what is wrong. What's the wrong with me? Even a criminal will say the same thing in the jail. So unless I'm in solitude and I am really unbiasedly seeing my own mind, I can never find that. That's why they say that the first sign of spirituality is to be swastha, to reside in yourself. Swam is sthit. We cannot. We are constantly, our mind is making us move hither and thither, getting associated with the things. Just unless we are in solitude and practice to keep the mind within itself, not to just go on being fed, being pampered by its the world of the senses, it can never be controlled. So that's what he's saying, that you have to know that art, to separating the rice from the husk. This rice is the mind and the husk is all these impurities. Unless you are alone, you can never do that. You must do it all by yourself. Every now and then you have to take the rice in your hand to see how clean it is. But how can you do your work well if you are called away again and again? So this is the basic idea. So separate yourself. When I separate myself, then I find the real working of the mind. It's just like a granny during the school vacation, sitting and weaving some woolen garment, and all the grandchildren now they have came because it's the school holidays. They're all sitting around the granny, and all of them want to be pampered. That's what happens if you just suppose we try to be in solitude. Let me disentangle myself from my immediate responsibilities for the time being. Just let me try to be with myself. I want to calm down my mind. I will find that's the condition of my mind. I want to relax, as if I want to knit something, sitting quietly. But all these grandchildren, all these samskaras, they all want to be pampered. They all want my attention. And that's when I have to now here. One thing I know, that if patiently I don't yield to the pamper, then they get the feedback, they will start falling off. So this is the practice of solitude. I have to be alone and then have to weaken them. not feed them, weaken them, so that gradually they start falling off. Otherwise, just to develop the dispassion is so difficult. So after saying that yes, ideally it is possible, even in a staying in household, but practically it is very difficult, because we have already so much inordinate attachment for the sunset world that as being associated with it to develop detachment is almost impossible. So that's why he is speaking that solitude is important. If not permanently, at least for a few days, even if not few days, if possible for a month. So now and then to be in solitude, to be away. That's what Sri Ramakrishna will be prescribing in the gospel in some other context too. So with this, we stop our discussion today. We'll continue with the remaining portion again in the next class. Thank you all. Namaskar.